الميكروفونات وسنعطي الكلمة للسيدة المديرة لإطلاق أشغال هذا المؤتمر. أنا مسرور أيما سرور باسم الإيسكو أن يكون معنا كل هؤلاء الضيوف على رأسهم الرئيس السابق وأيضا شخصيات أخرى من مجال التربية والتعليم. يسرني ويسعدني أن أرحب بكم جميعا إلى هذا المؤتمر الافتراضي حول التربية والتعليم في إطار المجتمعات التي نريد. يسرني أن أعطي الكلمة الآن لرئيس السابق للبرازيل. تفضل السيد الرئيس.
Participantes desta mesa de diálogo. Quero cumprimentar a doutora Alice Albright, da Parceria Global pela Educação. Quero cumprimentar o Prêmio Nobel Kailash Satyarthi, promotor da Marcha Global contra o Trabalho Infantil. Quero cumprimentar o doutor Salim Ailid, diretor-geral da Organização do Mundo Islâmico para Educação, Ciência e Cultura. E quero cumprimentar a doutora Koumbou Boly Barry, relatora especial da ONU para o Direito da Educação. Saúdo as organizações que dirigem e que promovem este encontro, do qual o nosso Instituto Lula tem o privilégio de participar. Quero iniciar expressando o sentimento de solidariedade a dor das famílias das vítimas da pandemia pela qual o nosso mundo está passando. Quero falar sobre esses tempos terríveis, depois de tratar do nosso tema central, que é a educação e seu papel na construção de uma nova sociedade melhor e muito mais justa do que esta em que vivemos. Neste mês de setembro, iniciamos as comemorações do centenário de nascimento do grande educador Paulo Freire. Foi meu amigo, nasceu na mesma região do Brasil que eu, no estado de Pernambuco, e foi companheiro na criação do Partido dos Trabalhadores. Será sempre lembrado pela contribuição que deu à libertação dos oprimidos no Brasil e ao redor do mundo por meio da educação. Das muitas lições que Paulo Freire nos deixou, duas são frequentemente destacadas. A primeira é a noção de que aquele que também está sendo educado é um conceito que só poderia ser formado por quem tinha a grandeza de respeitar a sabedoria dos humildes e reconhecer a existência do mundo acima das barreiras sociais e preconceituosas. A lição é de que a educação é literatura do mais amplo que pode ter a palavra liberdade. Liberdade na região em que nascemos, marcada pela herança da escravidão, a brutalidade dos ricos contra os pobres, a fome e a desigualdade, o simples ato de aprender a ler e escrever era uma rara conquista para alguém no meio do povo. A educação permite ao ser humano tomar consciência de si mesmo, de que é um cidadão com capacidade.
transmissão mesmo, a transmissão está sem som, a transmissão original, que o Lula não está falando aí.
الموارد بقطاعات ثانوية أخرى أهدافنا لا يمكن أن تقل. أعتقد أن هذا درس كبيرا تعلمناه عبر العالم، هو أن مسؤولية كل حكومة هي أن توفر القطاعات الأساسية لشعبها، وأن الحسابات الفئوية الأخرى تبقى هامشية. يجب بالتالي أن نركز الجهود للنهوض بالقطاع الأساسية كالتعليم والصحة وغير ذلك. شاءت الأقدار أن أتكلم مع البابا عن تأسيس وبالتالي وجهات نظرنا متقاربة. علينا أن نضافر جهودنا كمؤمنين ورجال كنيسة وأكاديميين وفاعلين في المجتمع المدني. الجميع مطالب أن يؤلي بدلوه حتى بالفعل نخرج من هذه الضائقة، وحكومة لها مسؤولية واضحة هي أن تعبر الموارد وتسخر هذه الموارد للقطاعات الفئوية التي ستحقق التغيير الذي نريده لعقود وعقود طويلة. كنا نعتمد على استغلال الموارد الطبيعية من المياه وغابات ومناجم، لكن لا يمكن أن نواصل على هذا المنوال اليوم. نطالب ونقول في البرازيل وفي أقاليم أخرى أن نحسن الشد، فبالتالي استغلال الموارد الطبيعية. وهناك تباين اجتماعي بين الفئات الاجتماعية، وهذا تباين غير مقبول. بالتالي نترك بالفعل تحقيق التغيير، نغير بالتالي الممارسات لنوعي مستقبل أفضل. من وجهة نظري أنا أناس محافظ على أنه جائحة كورونا، حتى وإن كان ثمن الذي دفعناه ثمنا غاليا، إلا أنه من واجبنا بالتالي أن نعيد الأمل إلى أنفسنا، وأن نحلم بالفعل بتحقيق التغيير ولنصل إلى عالم أفضل مما سنتذكر. أصدقائي الأعزاء، قبل أن أختم كلمة مثيرة ولا بعد كلمات لقد أثبتنا منذ 2003 حتى 2013 أن التغيير يمكن تحقيقه. على الأقل في البرازيل أثبتنا ذلك. لقد أنقذنا ملايين البشر من المجاعة. والفقر المدقع، وبالتالي حتى كنت أنا أيقنا
مئات الآلاف من مناصب الشغل
وبالفعل السياسات العالمية في البرازيل تمكنت من أن أصل إلى رئاسة.
يجب أن يلعب دورا قلتم على أن الاقتصاد يجب أن يتوجه أيضا إلى الفقراء، وهذا أمر في غاية الأهمية. إن التغيير الكبير الذي أحدثتموه بارز بالعيان خلال مدة انتدابكم، ولا شك على أن حالنا تحت هذه الجائحة تشكل لنا درسا يجب أن نستعيد منها. إن الوضع أصبح صعبا، ويجب أن نواصل أحلامنا لنغير العالم. شكرا لك سعادة الرئيس، فخامة الرئيس، على هذا الخطاب الذي نقدره تقديرا كبيرا، بل نقدر لكم حتى مشاركتكم في هذا المؤتمر. دعوني أقوم بعض التغيير في برنامجنا، وسأدعو زملائي الأعزاء للتلقي الحديث، وسأرجئ حديثي إلى الأخير. سيكون معنا السيد كيلاش ساتيارسي، الحائز على جائزة نوبل للسلام لعام 2014، وهو معنا اليوم حتى يحدثنا عن هذا الأمر المهم جدا. تفضل سيد.
To see President Lula virtually today on the screen. Last time
ولا سعادة بالغة أرى فخامة الرئيس لولا يواصل نظره الذي قام به لعقود طويلة، لقد التقيت به بعدة مرات وناقشنا هذه الأمور، ويذكرني دائما بأنه يضع أهداف يشتغل على تحقيقها، حتى وإن كان لي أنه يحتاج إلى 120 سنة حتى يحقق ما يحلم به، وأتمنى سيدي لولا أن تعيش 120 سنة. شكرا جزيلا.
وطبعا ستعيشون كلكم لتروا ذلك جميعا. اليوم
education has always been considered as an equalizer.
التعليم يعتبر بالتالي عادة أمل لم تحقق. الذي نرجوه أيضا شرطا أساسيا لتحقيق العدالة الاقتصادية في جميع المجتمعات. إذا أهمية التعليم هي أهم من أي قطاع آخر. أصدقائي الأعزاء، هذه الجائحة ليس فقط أزمة اجتماعية، وغياب العدالة الاجتماعية تزداد تفاقما في خضم الأزمة الصحية الحالية، وبالتالي التعليم في خطر، وبالفعل حق ملايين وملايين الأطفال في التعليم الأساسي وغيره في خطر. وبالتالي الكثير من المفكرين والكثير من الباحثين طرحوا نقوط الخطر تجاه مسؤوليتنا المشتركة فيما يخص هذا الوضع. الوسائل التي تمكن بالفعل من متابعة الدراسة عن بعد رغم الثورات التكنولوجية وغيرها، إلا أننا ما زلنا في ظل تمييز اجتماعي يحرم مئات الملايين من الأطفال من متابعة الدراسات عن بعد لغياب الإمكانات. 370 مليون طفل متمرد كانوا يعتمدون على المؤسسات المدرسية في غذائهم أيضا. حتى عائلاتهم في بعض الأحيان تعتمد على البرامج الغذائية التي توفرها المدارس. ما هو مصير هؤلاء الأطفال؟ هذا ما زلنا في مداخلة الرئيس الأولى، كيف أنه ساعد ملايين الأطفال في البرازيل كي يخرجوا من براثن المجاعة والفقر المدقع ويواصلوا دراستهم. كيف أننا تخلفنا إلى الوراء، كيف يمكن أن نفقد جيلا كاملا اليوم بسبب تراجع الحكومات عن التزاماتها، وهذا غير مقبول، وبالتالي قد يكون حتى عملا غير أخلاقي. 3 تريليون دولار تم تخصيصها من طرف البلدان الغنية لصندوق كوفيد 19. هذه التمويلات تنفق لدعم المؤسسات الاقتصادية والمؤسسات المالية لدعم آليات التمدرس عن بعد والبرامج الغذائية. كيف يمكن أن نبرر هذا الواقع؟ كيف سيؤثر ذلك على التعليم؟ سقوط التعليم بسبب هذه الأزمات. واليوم بناء على دراسات التي تم القيام بها، حوالي 80 مليون طفل لن يعود إلى صفوف الدراسة. هناك الكثير من التعاقدات تقدمت بها مؤسسات عالمية وحكومات، ولكن لم يتم الوفاء بهذه الالتزامات، وهذا لا يمكن أن نقبله كواقع. لا يمكن أن نحرم أي طفل من حقه في التعليم، وخاصة التعليم الأساسي.
Senhoras e senhores, temos que esperar que chegue a vez do ex-presidente. Ele está esperando, ele saiu agora da tela aqui e daqui a pouco ele deve começar a sua participação no evento. Aqui está o prefeito Fernando Haddad, ex-ministro e ex-prefeito de São Paulo, que também vai discursar no evento.
كلنا مطالبون بأن نضع أجندة حقيقية لحماية الأطفال المهمشين وضمان حقهم في التعليم. بداية الشهر القادم سننظم قمة للدفاع عن حقوق الأطفال المهمشين، وهناك إعلان سيختتم هذه الفعالية والتزامات. نطلب على الأقل 20% من اعتمادات صندوق مواجهة كوفيد 19 يجب تخصيصها لدعم الأطفال الفقراء وقطارهم عبر العالم، وهذا مبرر، ويمكن تمويل هذه الفعالية في البرازيل، في أمريكا اللاتينية، في أقاليم أخرى، لأنه لا يمكن بالفعل أن نتخلف عن مد يد المساعدة لهذه الفئات الواسعة من المهمشين. أصدقائي الأعزاء، نطلب أيضا أن كل الدعم الذي توفره الحكومات للمؤسسات الاقتصادية والمالية وغيره يجب أن يركز على البرامج الاجتماعية التي تنقذ فئات كبيرة من براثن الفقر والبطالة، وأن تستفيد الفئات الميسورة من هذا الدعم. إذا هذا هو حان الوقت كي نطلب تسريع البرامج الدعم الاجتماعي وتمويل بالتالي التعليم لفائدة الأطفال بالأساس. أنا كنت أحد مؤسسي مبادرة الشراكة العالمية للتعليم، وكنا نناضل لتعبئة الموارد، وحان الوقت بالنسبة للحكومات والشركات الاقتصادية أن تدعم هذه البرامج الاجتماعية لمد يد المساعدة لهذه البرامج التي نقوم بها. كما قال الرئيس لولا، نحن بحاجة إلى ريادة سياسية، وبالفعل ريادة فخامة الرئيس لولا في البرازيل ساعدت في إنجاح العديد من البرامج الاجتماعية وتعزيز برامج التعليم لفائدة الأطفال. ثالثا، أود أيضا وأتمنى وأطلب أن المؤسسات الصناعية والتجارية عليها أن تلعب دورا رياديا، والحكومات عليها أيضا أن تضع تشريعات تضمن بالتالي وتكافح عمالة الأطفال، لأن هناك مئات الملايين الأطفال يشتغلون بدل أن يذهبوا إلى المدارس، وهذا يزيد الطين بلة. وبالتالي هؤلاء الأطفال حينما بالتالي نمنعهم من العمل سيذهبون إلى المدارس. يجب أن يكون هناك أيضا تشريعات صارمة تكافح عمالة الأطفال. رابعا، نطلب أيضا إقامة شراكة للحماية الاجتماعية عبر العالم. رأينا كثير من تقارير العالم السابقة في البرازيل كيف أن نظم الرعاية الاجتماعية ساعدت في استمرار الأطفال في دراستهم، وأنقذتهم من براثن الجهل والفقر، وساعدت في بناء القدرات.
Senhoras e senhores, está para começar a qualquer momento o evento com os discursos dos participantes que estão na tela.
Not be any other binding factor than the compassion for children to make this world a sustainable and peaceful place. I call upon you to march from exploitation and injustices to shared prosperity. I call upon you, my dear friends, to walk from ignorance and illiteracy to education. I call upon you to walk from wrongs the world of justice. I call upon you to walk and march from exploitation to education, from violence to peace. Let us march from darkness to light. Let us march at your feet.
Thank you very much. Again, that is the music to our ears, delivered by Mr. Kirash, Nobel Prize winner. You mentioned that education is an equalizer, is a gateway to justice, is a prerequisite to the society that we want. You also focused that this pandemic is not just only a health or economic problem. It is a crisis for morality and justice. You called for education and the freedom of millions, those who are in danger. You mentioned that 8 trillion were allocated to fight against this COVID-19, and only 0.3% were allocated to marginalized and poor people. This need to be revisited and need to be brought up everywhere, in every conference, in every international conference. You mentioned that we made the promises, and promises has been made to our children, and yet many times promises were not kept. I thank those 88 Nobel laureates who joined together to protect those marginalized children. We came up with an announcement or a declaration. You also mentioned that 20% of COVID-19 should be reached, or those 88 Nobel laureates mentioned that 20% of the budget or the financial resources that were allocated should be reached to those marginalized children. And I think this is justice. You also called that debt should be cancelled. And definitely I think this is very important, where poor countries will focus on education and helping their children. You stated that this is the time for government to support international organizations who really sort of reach those marginalized and poor children. You made some hopes and demands. Companies should take the leadership, not government. And no child labor, or no children should be involved in the labor supply chain. And that to establish a global social protection, which is very important. And that once COVID-19 vaccine is discovered or is being approved, it becomes a public good and given to the poorest people. And that those young children should take the leadership, and that no child should be left behind or left out. I like your words that you ended, that we should walk away from ignorance to education, walk away from injustice to justice, from violence to peace, from darkness to light. Thank you very much. I really appreciate these words, and I'm sure that everyone is going to be listening and hope that they will take actions, whether from ministers, governments, or those who make the decision in education.
É preciso explicar, meus amigos, que esse evento não é da ONU, ele foi convocado por uma relatora da ONU para a educação, mas na verdade é um evento da ACESSE, que é uma organização ligada à ONU, mas não é a ONU. E esse evento também preciso esclarecer que ele já havia sido convocado antes do Bolsonaro discursar. Porém, isso não diminui a importância da participação do ex-presidente Lula e a divulgação da sensatez dele pelo mundo afora, a contraposição dele mundo afora será inevitável com o discurso à beira da loucura que o Bolsonaro fez esta semana na ONU. A gente pede um pouco de paciência para todo mundo. O evento é realmente um evento difícil para a gente de acompanhar, porque realmente ele tem é falado em árabe, né? E aí a gente tem essa dificuldade árabe e inglês. Mas daqui a pouco já entra o ex-presidente Lula.
Your Excellency President Lula da Silva, Mr. Satyarthi, Dr. Al-Malik.
Estão anunciando, ou pelo menos citando, o ex-presidente Lula.
Honored to speak with you today in such esteemed company, including the Ministers of Education from Pakistan, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, and Tunisia. I'd also like to extend warm greetings to our dear friend, Dr. Boly Barry, for all of her also outstanding work in education. Dr. Al-Malik, I'm so grateful to you as Director General for hosting this important event. Dr. Malik and I first had the opportunity to meet in his home country of Saudi Arabia in 2018 when I addressed a gathering of the region's brilliant education educators. And since then, we've seen a series of inspirational and creative engagements across the Arab region. The Global Partnership for Education works to mobilize new partnerships and investments, including with Arab and Muslim country partners. In 2018, the UAE became the first Arab donor country to join GPE, Dear Friends at Dubai Cares, a leading global philanthropy to ensure a successful Rewired Summit 2021 at the upcoming Dubai Expo. And I know that many of us are looking forward to that moment as hopefully an opportunity to be together in person once again. Today I'm going to make 4 points. First, the societies we want cannot be built without guaranteeing a quality education for every child. If anybody harbored any doubt about the importance of education, the COVID-19 pandemic erased it. Education is not only fundamental to a child's future, it is also essential for her parents to be able to go to work and support their family. It is vital to the prosperity of nations and to a peaceful world. GPE's vision is of a world where every child has access to an education system that is equitable, inclusive, and resilient, and where a high-quality education is not limited by one's economic status, gender, disability, or place in society. But that vision, and this is my second point, is far from being a reality. Children, families, communities, and countries suffer the repercussions of denying the right to a quality education. The COVID-19 pandemic took some 1.6 billion children out of school, putting everyone at risk of falling behind, but especially students living in poverty, girls, refugees, and migrants. Some of these will sadly never return. Early marriage, teen pregnancy, child labor, and poverty will be on the rise. But even before the pandemic, more than 250 million children did not attend school, and many who did were not learning enough. Girls especially are left behind. They are 1.5 times more likely than boys to be excluded from a primary education. We ignore girls' education at our own peril. An educated girl is more likely to lift her own family out of poverty. She is more likely to immunize her children and send them to school. The economic costs of not educating girls are colossal, leading to between $15 and $30 trillion in lost lifetime productivity and earnings. This is why GPE puts equality at the heart of everything that we do. Third, turning education around for our children will require sustained investment and innovation. This has been at the heart of GPE's approach for nearly 2 decades. We are the only partnership and fund dedicated exclusively to improving education in lower-income countries. Since our founding, we have invested $7 billion to help transform education systems. Our innovative approach has helped partner countries enroll 160 million more children into school, more than half of these are girls, and save $6 billion through more efficient education spending. With regard to COVID, so far we've provided more than $439 million to 55 countries to support their COVID-19 responses. And all of this has occurred over the last few weeks during the height of the pandemic. Governments are using these funds to launch innovative distance education programs to support teachers and equip schools to reopen safely when that's possible. In places as diverse as Pakistan and Rwanda, governments are investing to make education systems more resilient now and for the future. But this emergency funding is just a drop in an ocean of need. Without urgent action, the economic impacts of COVID-19 could roll back decades of progress on education, and we simply can't afford to lose this ground. We must safeguard education spending and make it a core part of our COVID-19 response and recovery plan, including, as many others have said, relieving, postponing, and restructuring debt. We must mobilize international finance, deploying these resources to countries most in need and where children are most at risk. Fourth, and this is my final point, it will take all of us working together to get the job done. Business as usual will not get us anywhere near our vision of a universal quality education. We have to both protect budgets, scale up financing, and innovation. This fall, GPE will launch our 4th replenishment campaign to ensure that we have the resources to continue this vital work. I invite all of you to become part of our campaign because education is the most important investment a country can make in its future. Excellencies, strengthening education systems transforms lives. I am impressed at how forward-looking the Middle East is when it comes to education. One of the next frontiers is to bridge the digital divide because remote learning in various ways and solutions associated with it will be part of our future. I urge every one of us to become a change maker. This is how we will reimagine and transform education systems to help create the societies that we want. Dr. Al-Malik, I thank you so much, Your Excellency, for inviting me to join this wonderful event. I wish everybody best health and warm wishes and look forward to a moment when we can all gather again in person. Thank you again so much and best wishes.
Thank you very much, Alice. Again, GD has always in the front line in fighting not just really a crisis, but fighting poverties and making sure that, as you clearly stated, quality of education is in the heart of GBE. You clearly stated that society cannot be built without education, and it's vital for prosperity, and I definitely agree. Funding of more than 400 million in the last few weeks to support marginalized and poor countries. I think this is a kind of an international organization that really makes a difference, which is quite important during such a crisis. We must work together, absolutely, and I think that you hit really the center, everything that, not just in the international organization, not only government and companies, I think everyone, we all should work together to make our world looks better. Once again, thank you very much, as usual. Now I move with my speech, if you allow me. Your Excellency President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, former President of Brazil, Mr. Kilas Sialdi, Nobel Prize winner, Ms. Alice Albright, Chief Executive Officer of GBE, Excellency the Ministers, dear guests. I am very pleased to welcome you all today to this crucial meeting on education and ACESSE social mission of the society we want, to discuss what I truly believe must be a priority for everything we build together: education. On April 2020, during the tough situation of international lockdown due to this unprecedented COVID-19 crisis, ACESSE embarked on deep transformation phase of our societies and has launched the Society We Want initiative. We aim to build healthy, peaceful, prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable societies. As Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. Education is the key for eliminating gender inequality, reducing poverty, creating better planets, preventing needless death and illnesses, and to foster peace. Our today gathering is a great opportunity to challenge ourselves about education we need for the present and the future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, education is a concern and in the heart of every national, regional, and international agenda, and in every country's development strategies. However, despite the valuable effort made by countries and by international organizations to enhance access, retention, and performance while promoting gender equality, the learning poverty indicator demonstrates that in low and middle income countries, the percentage of children at the age of 10 who are unable to read or understand has reached 53%. It's unfortunate that girls or women continue to remain underrepresented in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The internet access and availability remain critical issue for some countries, particularly in the African continent. The countries need to be supported to build a strong education management information system that will boost their education literacy. The pandemic has taught us that we are not prepared for such a crisis, and we need to step up and make a concerted effort to overcome it. The schools, universities that we know today may no longer exist tomorrow. It is time to revisit and reconsider our education system, to rebuild the education of the future that we need. COVID-19 has revealed the need for innovative education approaches and models, in particular the use of artificial intelligence in education. The 21st century education system, or the 21st century education system, will be completely different. Those who will win this pursuit are the ones that can foresee the future and make them today reality. Ladies and gentlemen, today I would like to reiterate the promise and commitment I made to our member state 16 months ago to place ACESSE as a beacon of global outreach within its realms of competence to overcome the challenges and keep pace with regional and international changes, while promoting multilateral cooperation and partnership, decentralizing efforts to further reflect the ground realities on education, science, and culture. our commitment responds to the aspiration of the Islamic and the world at large for inclusive, sustainable development and a prosperous future through all forms of education for everyone and at all levels. Once again, I express my determination for ACESSE to contribute in achieving the education for all goals and invite all stakeholders in education to join us in creating a strong and unified education management system as an enabling factors in the achievement of our education goals. Many international organizations like ACESSE share similar and homogeneous aspirations and goals. Instead of competing, we complement the efforts of our counterpart organization and are delighted to work hand in hand to achieve together the advocacy of education for all. Thank you very much. Now we move to our next sessions, and I will ask my dear colleague, Ms. Koumbou, to take over and moderate the second session. But once again, I really would like to thank His Excellency former President Brazil, Ms. Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, Mr. Kailash Satyarthi, the Nobel Prize winner, and Ms. Alice Albright, the Chief Executive Officer of GBE, for their participation and wonderful speeches at this opening session. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Excellence. Je voudrais vraiment
very much, Excellencies.
vous dire que vous avez fait un excellent
To tell you
message à l'endroit à la fois de nos invités, mais à l'endroit du monde entier. Excellence, Monsieur le Directeur Général, avec votre permission, je voudrais très sincèrement remercier Son Excellence, Monsieur le Président Luis Inácio Lula da Silva du Brésil.
I would like to thank the President of Brazil as a special reporter of the United Nations for the right that was in this framework that we invited him. So thank you again, Excellency. Thank you to all the guests. Thanks as well to His Majesty the King, Mohammed VI from Morocco, for this land of peace that allow us to host and organize all our activities in peace. Now I would like to call upon Her Excellency, Mrs. Claudina Ayokol, Minister of Basic and Secondary Education of the Gambia. So Mrs. Ayokol from the Gambia. Excellency, Ayokol.
Okay. I think she's not connected. We will give the floor to the Minister of Pakistan, the Honorable Minister Shafkat Mahmood, please. You have the floor, and you're welcome. Est-ce que vous pouvez activer votre micro, s'il vous plaît, Monsieur le Ministre? Okay.
Excellency, could you please turn on your microphone? Thank you.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Yes. Well, Dr. Salim al-Malik, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, it was indeed a pleasure to hear President Lula and Ms. Alice Albright and my friend Dr. Malik and their speeches outlined the problems that the world faces in the shape of this gathering. We've been living through a very difficult time. COVID-19 impacted all countries and it impacted Pakistan also. And during this period, our educational institutions remained closed for 6 months with a great loss to our children, and because of many reasons, but one of them was that not everybody was connected, and the digital divide that some of our worthy speakers have been talking about earlier became far more visible and far more stark during this crisis. So we have been facing many challenges. We already, even before COVID-19, we were facing a challenge of out-of-school children. But during the pandemic, as schools remained closed, many of the institutions, especially low-fee paying private institutions, had difficulty surviving. So our fear is that during this period, our challenge of out-of-school children has increased. We are collecting data, but many of the children, or some of the children who stopped going to school, particularly between the ages of 10 and 15, went into the job market and in that sense lost their education. So among the many challenges, this was one of the challenges that we now face, but there are other challenges that we have had for some time in our country. And the topic of this particular portion is equitable and inclusive quality of education for all. So one of the things that we inherited was that our education system reflected the social divisions in our society. I think that is probably true of most societies. But one of the extra problems over here for us has been that even the curriculum being taught in different schools, private schools, government schools, religious schools, was so different from each other. So in that sense, the whole idea of inclusive education was definitely not there, and it was not equitable either, because the poorer income students were studying a curriculum which was not preparing them for the challenges that they face in the world. So therefore, one of the first tasks that we have undertaken, and which we are now nearing conclusion, is that we are developing a national curriculum. This might become, this might be routine for many countries which have had a national curriculum for a long time, but we did not have a national curriculum. So we are, as a part of our desire for equitable education, we are trying to level the playing field for all children in the shape of learning outcomes, student learning outcomes, that we believe that every student will come up to. And in that sense, the education for all objectives, which obviously would take a long time to have equitable education for all, but at least one major attempt has been made to level the playing field for all children in Pakistan. So this is something that even during the pandemic, a lot of work has been done on this. Our national curriculum would be launched very soon. On out-of-school children, as I said, that we already have a problem of out-of-school children. We probably have one of the highest numbers of out-of-school children in the world. We have 20 million out-of-school children, and my fear is that we may actually add to this number because of COVID. So we have launched multiple programs to reach the out-of-school children. In our social protection plan, in which we give cash transfers to poor families, And during the pandemic, we gave 150 billion rupees in shape of cash transfer as also a component that if these families send their children to school, they would get an extra stipend. So this program, which is known as Assista Lula, has been specifically launched to address the problem of out-of-school children, because many of the out-of-school children come from low-income families. Many of those families are receiving assistance in the shape of social protection, and therefore we have launched this program. Also, there is another, we did some research on out-of-school children, and we found that one of the reasons that many children don't go to school is because their parents don't see the value of education. And they don't see the value of education is because they want their children to be in the job market as soon as possible. And therefore, we have started to introduce something which is very often happening in other countries, especially in Europe, but we have started to add skills training as a part of our curriculum for graduation for high school, so that those children who go beyond the age of 10 can get some skills, so therefore their parents can see the value of having skills education, and which leads to better prospects in the job market. So similarly, to reach to the girls, we have also launched a number of programs because social factors particularly were hampering the education of girls, because once they graduated beyond primary, the access to secondary schools was away from home, and the parents did not want to send their girls children far away from home, and so technology is opening up many doors, and technology is really helping us to reach out to people who do not have access to secondary schools or high school. So I think we are seeing technology as a huge boost to many of our efforts to reach children who are not going to school, and we are now going to use tablets to not only teacher train, not only reach out to informal schools, but we will also reach out to women and girls, and technology is going to be a big help. Incidentally, in the question of technology, as soon as we closed the schools, we immediately launched a tele-school, which was watched by 7 to 8 million children every day. So that was quite helpful. So there is so much to say, but technology is the way forward, and we are looking at educational technology, development of new content, reaching out to children who are difficult to reach. And in this, I must say that Global Partnership for Education has been very helpful, and Ms. Albright, who was here, they have helped Pakistan in emergency assistance for COVID, reopening schools for COVID, and we are definitely has helped us a lot in opening schools and making other arrangements to reach out to children who are not in school. So, just to sum up, we are looking at a variety of initiatives which would be helping us to ensure that every child is somehow reached out to. We follow the policy of no child left behind, and inshallah, by the grace of Allah, we will try and expand our programs, and over a period of time, we hope to reduce drastically the number of children who are out of school. There are many other initiatives, but I think my time is running out. I want to thank Dr. Salim Al-Malik. Ever since he has arrived at ACESSE, it has become, and it is becoming, a very vibrant education, and I congratulate him as a vibrant organization in every field, actually, not just in education. And I congratulate him for that. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much, Excellency, for your speech and wonderful messages, and also your experience in your country. Talking about inclusive education, this is really a fundamental issue if you want to build the society we want. And also you are talking about equitable education for all children, and you are in the process of making some reform in your country, and you are a leadership in this way. It's really a wonderful moment to congratulate you for these great strategies and orientations. You are talking about poor families and how to take some actions, who are really specific actions, to be sure that poor families are able to make the effectiveness of the right to education of their children. And the out-of-school children also, you are making some research to be sure that you have the best information to take the best decision and to work on this area. The role of technology is really also a huge area, and your country is working on, and you have also the support of GPA, and I think hand to hand, I'm sure we will make a better world. Thank you, Excellency, for your contribution and your comment, and you are really, really welcome. Thank you again. The next speaker will be the Minister of Brazil, Mr. Fernando, please. If he is here, Adam.
I'm here.
Yes. Please.
I will speak in Portuguese, so I'm waiting for a translation. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you. Muito prazer em estar.
It's a great pleasure to be here today, and I will compliment a speech made by our President Lula that governed Brazil for 80 years. He was in office for 8 years, and he actually put education in Brazil in amongst his top priorities. I had the opportunity to work with President Lula during 7 years of his 80 years in office as Minister of Education, and so I'm a live witness of how much he cared for education and the revolution that he did in Brazil in the light of the past century. I'm sorry, and I would also like to refer to my colleagues, ministers of education of their respective countries, that also bring a great contribution with such an important theme in the post-pandemic situation, which would be the case of education that would affect the lives of hundreds of millions of children around the world. I would like to share the Brazilian experience and the principles of the educational reform in Brazil, because I believe that some of these principles could follow by the period post-pandemics. We had 3 basic principles that guided our educational program during the 13 years that we ruled Brazil. The first and most important one was to value the teacher, valuing the teacher's work in Brazil. And for that, President Lula passed a constitutional amendment foreseeing for all Brazil, we're talking about more than 200 million inhabitants in Brazil, a minimum wage of 4 is specific for the teachers, a separate minimum wage for the teachers. That is to say, Brazil has a minimum wage for any worker in the country, but it has in its constitution a minimum wage foreseen for one just professional category, which is the teachers, Brazilian teachers. And this initial wage for beginning a teacher's career drew the attention of the Brazilian youth for something of which they were far away from for a long time, where the profession as a teacher was being devaluated, historically speaking. And so we put that as our core focus in the community, but especially we had the target of the youth, so that they could serve their country as teachers. And this minimum wage, specific minimum wage for the teachers, transformed the reality of many young people, especially those that live in the poorest regions of the country, where this salary has an appeal, it's attractive in the interior of Brazil, a much higher appeal than it would have in the big cities. The second aspect, important aspect, was the funding aspect for education. For the very first time in the Brazilian history, the funding of education, of the Brazilian education, as a share of our GDP, the gross domestic product, was fixed above the average of the OECD countries, which is something that never had happened before during the 20th century. That is to say, for the very first time in the history of Brazil, where public funding, public investment as a share of the GDP overcomes the average of the richest countries in the world that are OECD members. This made it possible to more than double investment per student on elementary school, or basic education. And the third point, the third topic, very important, we started to assess every 2 years all the public schools in Brazil, without any exception. We started to publicize the results per school so that the families, the households, could appropriate themselves of this information about their local school. And we fixed goals, targets, that each school would have to reach a certain goal, those learning goals in the basic disciplines of domain of the language and of mathematics. And this made that all the teachers.
Senhoras e senhores, o blog da Cidadania já publicou a íntegra do discurso que o Lula vai fazer nesse evento.
The domain of languages, of mathematics, and the native language of the country. We know it's not limited to that only, but we also understand that without the control of the native language and mathematics, it's very difficult to guarantee full citizenry. That is to say, the follow-up of the literacy and the learning of math of each Brazilian child. Now it became part of the routine of the follow-up by the families and by the governments, local, state, and federal level. So, the change of management of education went through these three issues. First, the evaluation of the teacher. Second, permanent assessment. And then third, state or government funding so that the transformation could happen. But there's a fourth element of this process that I would like to add, and it is not a usual recommendation, especially from the international bodies. And I like to draw your attention for this fourth element, this fourth thought. We did not establish a focus policy for education. We did not establish the burden of those that would receive the additional effort that the state, the government would be undertaking. We adopted as a goal that the investment would be done since basic education, elementary, till graduate studies. And so, going through the university studies, professional, vocational training studies, elementary school, reaching, and even education of people, disabled people. That is to say, we decided to bet that each one of the Brazilians would have the right to take one step forward, that they would have the right to have a promotion regardless of their educational situation, especially looking towards the education of the working class people and the poorest people. That is to say, if a poor kid arrived to the university, he felt that right to, he won the right to go to a graduate studies. If a poor kid, they had daycare, now he would have the right for elementary school. If a disabled child is not enrolled in a school, yes, now it would have the right to receive the necessary support so that its attendance would be guaranteed in school, and that it would have an adequate professional to give support to its intellectual development process for this disabled child. That is to say, we decided that the educational issue would not be an issue on the supply side, but it would be on the demand side. Any Brazilian that would be demanding to the Brazilian state or government to promote their own education would have this right assured by the Brazilian Constitution. And I would like that this fourth element that was key to convey to the country the message that no one would stay behind. It doesn't matter the color of the skin, the gender, the social class, their abilities. That is to say, people would progress as much their ambition and their vocation would allow them to progress, or as much their desire to improve themselves vis-a-vis education. This is the message, and this is a crucial message for a country that is poor and still in development. Otherwise, it's still developing country. Otherwise, you would convey a message that the child, that its dream, that the dream of the child is not guaranteed because the country, in a certain way, is submitted to its role in the international hierarchy. And this is a path that we did not want to follow, that there's no child that would have a predetermined destiny, that her future would be a construction that depended on he or her, because the government would give support, whatever may be its ambition, its vocation, its desire. This government would support. And from the response from international bodies, like international bodies, is to condemn a country and condemn the youth of a country, of that country, for the international division of labor that is pre-established. And to change this so pre-established international division of labor, we need to educate with ambition to transform, with the ambition to emancipate the people. And so that's why you cannot deny to anyone to reach the highest levels of education, which means the formation of citizens that are capable to make criticism in a world that is under constant transformation. That's why I close my comments saying that it's not because the country is poor or is still a developing country that this country should surrender, should inhibit itself of its ambition for human development. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Excellency. It's really a pleasure to listen to your wonderful message and your sharing. This is really a great experience from Brazil, focused on three pillars. One is how to motivate teachers, and it's a key for the quality of education. We are sure for that. The second message, and it is really also how we can fund education, because it is in the history of the country, how you decided to make a great budget, but to institutionalize this budget in the law. And this is really very, very, very important to share with the other countries of the world. The third thing is also the quality of education, public quality and inclusive education, taking care of everybody. That means people who are poor, people also who take care of gender perspective, social care, and this is really, I think, how also to build a good policy with the decentralization of resources, but also for human resources. And I think this is really how to build the better future for the education, and to have an education who is really with ambition for the country, with ambition for the citizen, to emancipate, but also to transform the society. We are really learning very well from you, and thank you again for this wonderful sharing with us. The next speaker will be my colleague of the Honorable Minister of Tunisia. Please, Hatem, you have the floor, and really you're welcome to share with us your knowledge. And it's really 3 decades of experience, and we are really happy to have you with us. Thank you for coming and joining to us.
Thank you, dear sister. Thank you for inviting me. And let me first start by thanking ACESSE and its very dynamic Director General, my brother, Dr. Salim Al-Malik, for launching this very, I should say, courageous initiative. Societies we want, at this very critical moment in humankind history. Dear friends, we all are aware of the very deep changes the world is living today, and also the very deep disarray of nations facing so harsh challenges without any vision and any mean. And because I believe in international solidarity, I appeal today to all world leaders to support this initiative, especially that its main goal is to promote education and put it at the heart of each national and international project for sustainable development. The main and the most important question is, what do we need to make it a successful and an action-oriented initiative? I must respond first that we need a strong commitment of international community. This commitment should be around an international plan of action for education based on a very concrete roadmap, and especially based on 3 events. The first one is vision. We are now living in a world where globalization is going at a very fast track. The only issue which is still fragmented and divided is education. I don't say that we do not need national educational system, but I say that time is ripe today for having an international platform of knowledge that could be shared by each and everyone, wherever they are on this earth. Vision is very important because we need to put all our efforts together. We need, for the next at least 20 years, we need to put in common all our efforts for education. And I should even say we must internationalize the issue of education. This could not be possible, as I said, without a strong commitment of international community. And as I said it in the International Conference of UNESCO last year, we have to put in mind that most of our countries will not reach the goals of SDGs. It's, for us, something undoubtable. And that's why we have today to put those international efforts and means together. We need a vision, but we need also new learning approaches. The world is changing, everyone is saying this, and we have to stop making diagnoses and mourning on the very bad situation of our national educational systems. we need to act now. How? By having in mind that this world, which is changing, needs new learning approaches. We have today, and our brother, the Director General of ACESSE, Dr. El Malik, said it, we know now that, for example, artificial intelligence, ITCs, are now making so rapid and so fast progresses. We need to get into this trend, and we need to be aware that in the future, international artificial intelligence and ITCs will be at the heart of every project of reforming education, nationally and internationally. Most of the jobs of today, more than 60% of them, will disappear in the 20 next years. We have to take this into account and change our programs, change our methods, change our pedagogies, and give our professors and our masters the time and the skills to be able to at least adapt themselves to do those very profound new changes. The third and last thing, which is for me very important and have to be part of this roadmap of this international plan of action, is find innovative ways of financing education. Personally, I'm against canceling debt. I'm for the recycling of debt into educational projects. We need money. We need innovative ways of financing education. And I call up today to all bankers of the world and tell them that's the best investment they can do today and for the next at least 2 or 3 decades is an investment in education. States, our states are not anymore capable to face the huge challenges of financing education. I can give one example. In the budget I used to have, the most important budget of the state of Tunisia in education, more than 7 billion Tunisian dinars. 95% of this budget goes to salaries and wages. We need to really invest in education, in innovation in education, and this is the key of all the future reform. So what kind of societies we want? It's a society where education is at the heart of every project of sustainable development. We could not leave things going as they are today. We have to take our responsibilities, and we have to be able to face the new challenges together. This is my message, and I'm sure that many of you are hearing it very strongly. Thank you for listening, and all the best for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Excellency. It's a pleasure, my brother, to meet you again and to listen your vision, who is really a wonderful one. The society you want must be a society who has education in his heart. In many components of this society, we must have education in the heart of this society. And you are calling also for the international solidarity to have a strong commitment. And I'm sure if we have this kind of commitment, we are sure we are able to achieve the SDG goals. And you call also for how to democratize the platforms and also how to innovate. You are talking about the artificial intelligence, and I think it's really one key way, and ACESSE is really working on that, and His Excellency is really one of the key person who today are really pushing how to use this kind of tool to move also for better education for our world. You share with us also how to do that, to be sure that we will have innovative pedagogies. We'll have also good content, that means curricula, but we have also to give capacities to teachers, and we will have also the new ways and innovative ways to finance the education. For example, recycling debts, and I am sure many civil society are really organized and they are fighting also on this area. And I'm sure
Senhoras e senhores, o discurso do ex-presidente Lula, a íntegra transcrição está com o link na comunidade do blog da Cidadania. Basta acessar lá para ver o teor do discurso do ex-presidente. Mas a vez dele de falar ainda não chegou.
Please, you have the floor, and it's a pleasure to see you and to meet you and to listen to you. Madame Aïchaba, est-ce que vous avez allumé votre micro?
Your mic, Mrs. Your Excellency, your mic.
Director General of the UNESCO, dear colleagues ministers, dear Kalash, dear Alice, distinguished guests. It is a pleasure and an honor to be with you today to share a few thoughts on this theme that is so important to UNESCO. Indeed, you must recognize the transformational nature of education and the importance of ensuring quality education in order to achieve other sustainable development goals, including poverty reduction, improved public health, greater economic growth, environmental protection, safer and more peaceful, stable communities. Education cuts across all SDGs. It is the backbone of sustainable development. More importantly, it is a powerful tool to help low-income countries boost their economies and get out of poverty. Yet, 258 million children and youth, including 132 million girls, were out of school. And over 60% of the 173 million adults illiterate were women and girls. This is so unfortunate. As education gives women resilience, promotes health for themselves and all members of the family. Educated women have fewer children that they educate better and keep healthier. Women's education boosts countries' economies, promotes tolerance, sustains social cohesion, brings peace, contributes to protecting an environment, and ensures prosperity as well as democracy. Another area with high investment return is that of youth. And I'll take Africa as an example. The AU summit in Addis Ababa in January 2017 recommended to harness the demographic dividend through investment in youth. You know that the population in Africa is 1.2 billion people, and 60% of them are below 25 years. In 2050, this number is going to be 2.2 billion, and in 2100, the number will increase to 3.7 billion. It is a continent which has high potential. Each young woman and man has a potential and should have dignity, self-esteem, should have a dream and a hope. All they need is to be equipped with the right knowledge and skills, including technical and vocational, STEM, and digital, that will allow them to remain relevant on the global scale in and beyond. It is only through education and provision of quality manpower that real economic growth and development could take place and drive change in anywhere, especially in Africa. To achieve this and move the education sector forward, it is critical to invest in 5 major areas. First, upgrading the teaching profession. Second, promoting knowledge transfer. Third, review the curriculum to cater for both present and future manpower. As in 10 years' time, even less, 40% of today's jobs will disappear. 90% of future jobs would require ICT skills, and 2 million new jobs
will be created in the computer, mathematical, architecture, engineering fields. Fourth, upgrading school infrastructure. 5, striving for the underprivileged, the poor, the left out. As the latter is concerned, the COVID-19 outbreak has provoked a health crisis, a social economic crisis, including education, and a food crisis, which we are living now. It has shown us that the poor students were not equipped with the appropriate technologies and did not have access to internet in order to have access to platforms put in place to ensure distant learning. In Africa, for instance, many of them will drop out, in particular women and girls. In some countries in Africa, for poor children, the combination of radio, TV, and basic mobile phones did allow a rapid and easy way to reaching the majority of children who do not have access to internet. With significant investment in education, countries would effectively participate in the digital economy. For this to happen, governments and corporations should join hands to act together to provide access to internet and electricity at affordable price. This will bridge the gap between those who have access to the internet and those who have not. To keep it short, in order to embark on a deep transformational process of our societies, education has a key role to play, as it is a foundation for human fulfillment, economic growth, decent work, gender equality, sustainable development, protection of the environment. It contributes to understanding all human rights, to reducing of inequalities, eradicating poverty, promoting health, boosting the economy, and generating the opportunities for just, inclusive, and sustainable societies. All this will contribute to promoting global citizenship, peace, social cohesion, and democracy. As said Kofi Annan, education helps bring about tolerance, intercultural dialogue, and respect for diversity, as these are more essential than ever in a world where peoples are becoming more and more closely interconnected. I will switch into French. Les sociétés que nous voulons doivent donc avoir pour fondation.
The societies that we want should have freedom, justice, and social equity, and should be based on good governance and a policy of transparency and equality of chances, a system of values that honor democracy. 2, there is a challenge. We need to focus on education. Education is key.
We share a common destiny. We can master it only if we face it together. And today, his school is giving us this opportunity. Je remercie donc le directeur général de m'avoir donné cette
I'd like to thank Mr. Director General for having given me this opportunity. Thank you to your staff for the excellent work. And my last word, my colleagues at the Ministry of Education, may God encourage you, because your work is the hardest and the most difficult. So you need an adequate budget in order to ensure access to education. And the words of Mr. Director General should be heard, and I am confident that we all will join this mission of His Excellency. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Mrs. Aisha Badialo, for this message. Excellent, as usual, inspiring. You have inspired all participants and our guests, and you focused on 3 main issues. Education means values. Societies we want need to be based on values such as social cohesion, peace, democracy, political ethics and governance, and you have also given the conditions prerequisite for education to be a right, an effective right for the population as a whole. And you focused also on inclusive education to ensure that poor families, and particularly girls and women, have access. You also underlined the population dimension. Population in Africa is a potential, high potential for Africa. You have also underlined the training of teachers.
Senhoras e senhores, essa transmissão vai ser encerrada porque a fala do ex-presidente Lula ocorreu em primeiro lugar, mas deu um defeito nela e eu não sei se todos vão conseguir ver. Mas, de qualquer forma, nós agradecemos aí a atenção e estaremos de volta amanhã às 8 horas da manhã. Um abraço para todo mundo.